My son Sam had a high fever during the night, but my husband David was out celebrating the birthday of another woman's daughter. The following day, I calmly suggested we get a divorce. David frowned and asked, "Is it really necessary to make such a big deal out of something relatively small?" He added, "If you divorce me, you'll have to leave with nothing." "All right," I replied simply. He seemed surprised that I agreed so readily and looked up at me. "Alice, are you sure? If you insist on a clean break like this, you won't receive any assets, including custody of our son." David's expression was serious and his words were firm, and I said, "I know, let's complete the divorce paperwork as soon as possible." Annoyed by my response, David didn't try to persuade me further. He just replied, "We'll meet at the Civil Affairs office tomorrow at 8 a.m. Getting the divorce certificate turned out to be simpler than getting the marriage certificate had been. Holding the divorce papers, I posted a short message online. "Happy divorce." Many people liked the post, including David's first love from college, Laura. Later, as I was packing my clothes at home, I overheard a conversation between David and Laura on the phone. Laura was repeatedly apologizing for calling a married man and blaming herself. David, however, just said coolly, "It has nothing to do with you. Don't overthink it." When I walked into the room where David was, Laura, who must have arrived while I was packing, seemed startled for a moment, but quickly managed a smile. "Alice, you're back. I can go make you dinner." David didn't look up from the papers he was dealing with on the table. I looked at Laura directly and said, "We aren't close friends, so please call me Miss Lee. Also, even though I've divorced David, that doesn't give you the right to act familiar here. If you want that privilege, you should at least become his wife first. Although, given your current circumstances, getting approval from the Evans family elders seems unlikely for you." With those words, I saw Laura's face visibly pale. She had been considered very attractive back in university, and even after several years, she still looked quite charming. Laura seemed flustered and said, "Miss Lee, you misunderstood. That's not what I intended." I waved my hand dismissively. "Whether it's true or not, you know best." David frowned. "Alice, our problems don't involve Laura. There's no need to be so confrontational towards her." I smiled slightly, a hint of bitterness in it. David and Laura had been a well-known couple in college. One incident involved Laura being harassed, and David finding the person responsible and getting into a physical fight. Later, that same person deliberately hit David with a car. David spent a full year in the hospital recovering. Because of this incident, the Evans family developed a very negative view of Laura. During the year David was recovering, Laura married a persistent suitor from campus, known for being aggressive. They had a daughter together, Chloe, who was now 7 years old. Laura eventually sought a divorce, citing ongoing domestic violence from her husband. However, her husband's family had connections, and the divorce process dragged on for a year without resolution. That's when Laura reached out to David again. The first time Laura called, it was during our son Sam's birthday party. David had only said, "Son, I'll be back soon to cut the cake with you." Because of that promise, Sam sat at the table waiting the entire night. Every time he heard a noise at the door, he'd look up hopefully only to lower his head in disappointment moments later. This kind of thing happened more than once. Since Laura re-entered the picture, David started breaking promises more frequently. He promised to take Sam to the amusement park on a weekend, but a call from Laura came and he just patted Sam on the head, offered some comforting words, and left. I had promised Sam we'd go on vacation during the summer, but another call from Laura disrupted those plans. David promised to attend Sam's parent-teacher meeting, but because of Laura, he missed it, and Sam felt embarrassed in front of his classmates. I had argued with David, expressed my anger, but it didn't change anything. Instead, it seemed to push him further away. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Evans, tried to reassure me. "David is a responsible man," she said. "He would never intentionally hurt you or Sam. As long as you are the wife of the Evans family, David will never abandon you both." I nodded. She was right. This understanding was one of the main reasons I agreed to give up custody of Sam in the divorce. David always felt free to leave because he knew I would be there for our son. But now, without me in the picture, would he still feel comfortable rushing off to help Laura? The next day, a news item titled, "Mistress Boldly Enters Original Wife's Home," caused a significant stir online. The video I had discreetly taken and posted showed Laura entering the house, and her face wasn't blurred. People who knew her quickly started sharing details about her past. Isn't that the supposedly aloof campus beauty from university? Now she's resorting to being a mistress? The original wife hasn't even moved out, and the mistress is already making herself at home. How shameless. I dislike these types who try to act innocent while causing trouble. So disingenuous. Mistresses deserve bad things to happen to them. Totally agree with the comment above. The online public opinion quickly turned negative towards Laura. I thought this wave of criticism might make her reconsider her actions, but ironically, it ended up helping her finalize her divorce from her husband, Robert. Apparently, Robert's family held a certain social standing and considered having such a daughter-in-law damaging to their reputation, so they pushed the divorce through immediately. Laura then tried to claim half of their marital assets. However, Robert's family used the video I posted as evidence in court, proving infidelity on Laura's part, and the ruling was that she had to leave the marriage with nothing. Because Robert's family held traditional patriarchal views, they also declared they would not take custody of their daughter, Chloe. My son, Sam, called me. "Mommy, I haven't seen you in so long. When are you coming back?" The little boy's voice sounded sad. "The nanny, Maria, said you don't want me anymore. Is that true? Did I do something to make you unhappy?" "Mommy, tell me. I'll fix it. Please don't leave me, okay?" I paused for a moment, then asked calmly, "Which nanny told you that?" It was Maria," Sam whispered. "Sweetheart, Mommy has to be away for a little while, but I haven't abandoned you. If anyone says things like that to you again, just tell Daddy or tell me. Even though I'm not living at home right now, I still love you very much." "Okay, then I feel better," he said, sounding relieved. "Mommy, I just transferred $5 million to your account. Take care of yourself while you're away. Eat well and drink well. Grandma and Daddy gave me a lot of money. I have money now, so I can take care of Mommy. Mommy doesn't have to work so hard." The little boy spoke very seriously. I smiled and reassured him. Afterward, I called David. He promptly fired the nanny, Maria, telling her to pack her things and leave immediately. He also warned the household staff that anyone speaking negatively about me in front of Sam would also be dismissed. On a Friday afternoon, David was unable to pick Sam up from school, so he called me. When I arrived at the school gate, I unexpectedly ran into Laura, who was bundled up in a thick coat. Seeing how composed I looked, Laura seemed to instantly look much older and more worn down. She glared at me and said, "Are you happy now? Your video made me a social outcast." "My Chloe is innocent. You're a mother too. How could you be so cruel? Aren't you afraid that something bad will happen to your own son as a result?" I glanced at her without much interest, casually inspecting my newly manicured nails. "Actually, I'm not satisfied enough." I shook my head. "Your situation should be 10 times worse than this. And your daughter isn't exactly innocent either. It was probably a wise decision for your ex-husband's family to distance themselves from her." "You horrible woman," Laura hissed. "You've ruined my life. I won't let you get away with this." I didn't bother responding to her angry outburst, merely waved my hand dismissively. "Feel free to try any time." After spending the day at the amusement park with Sam, David showed up as the sun was setting. "Laura called me today," David said, looking at me. I simply responded, "So? Are you here to defend your former girlfriend now?" "You know that's not what I meant. Could you stop speaking so harshly? You weren't like this before." "Then how was I supposed to be?" I countered. "Stay at home cooking and cleaning, managing the household, taking care of everything? Or was I supposed to just blindly obey whatever you said?" He seemed momentarily stunned, unsure how to reply. "People change," I continued. "Before Laura reappeared, everyone thought you were an ideal husband, and Sam saw you as the perfect father. But since she came back into the picture, what have you become?" I started counting on my fingers. I've kept track. Since Laura showed up again 2 years ago, you've broken your promises 99 times. Every single time you promised Sam something or made a commitment to me, it would disappear with just one phone call from Laura. I looked directly at him. "Tell me, Can you honestly say that none of this has anything to do with Laura? We went to university together, David argued weakly. She was in trouble, and I just helped her out as a friend. I swear, I never physically cheated on you. I smiled and turned away. Physical cheating isn't the only kind. In my view, emotional cheating is just as damaging. And in my world, there's no tolerance for that kind of betrayal. Laura became a social pariah, forced to move frequently with her daughter Chloe to avoid a negative attention. David couldn't bear to see them struggling and eventually set them up in a villa not far from his own home. Because of this proximity, Laura would often show up at his door, usually under the pretext of bringing over some special food or nourishment for Sam. David, however, usually politely declined her offerings. When Sam mentioned this to me, his face showed clear displeasure. I don't like the supplements Aunt Laura sends. They taste bad. He then whispered to me, Aunt Laura comes over almost every night. She apologizes to Daddy and asks if they can go back to how things were before. I smiled faintly. It was predictable. Laura was now infamous, and her only perceived path to stability was to hold on to David tightly. How could she possibly let go of that perceived opportunity? I gently teased my son. What else do you know? I also know that Daddy doesn't want Aunt Laura coming to the house so often. Daddy told me I should focus on studying hard and not let these adult things distract me. Sam tilted his head proudly, looking quite pleased with himself. I told him, when Mommy isn't around, you should listen to Daddy. He won't harm you. David's work kept him very busy, and since Sam refused to bond with any new nanny, David had no choice but to call me for help more often. For Sam's sake, we had agreed not to tell him about the divorce yet. Returning to the house felt strange, like stepping into a past life. When Sam saw me, his face lit up with pure joy. Mommy, I got first place again in the math Olympiad. I smiled and praised him warmly. Such a simple reunion felt normal to me, but for David, my presence seemed to create some internal conflict. A week later, David called me, sounding angry. Alice, what is the meaning of this? We agreed to separate amicably. Are you seriously trying to bankrupt the Evans family? Have you thought about Sam's future? Even though I couldn't see him, I could easily imagine his furious expression. What do you mean? What have I supposedly done? I replied coldly. The Evans family's confidential business files were leaked. That file was kept in the safe at home, and the only person besides me who knew the password was you, Alice, David said angrily. Do I need to spell it out more clearly? David, if you're losing your grasp on reality, perhaps you should seek professional help. Don't just throw around baseless accusations. I paused, then continued calmly. Ruining you financially would do me no good, and it would only harm Sam. I'm not foolish enough to do that. Don't you remember why I agreed to give up custody of Sam? He can only receive the best education and opportunities under the Evans family's resources. I would never do anything to jeopardize Sam's future. The Evans family has significant influence in both business and medicine. Sam's elite school costs millions in tuition each year, not to mention other expenses. Use your brain and think carefully. Who has been visiting your house frequently lately? Who keeps showing up under the pretext of delivering supplements? Who is the most likely person to have taken those files? Do I really need to say her name? By now, the implication was obvious. David spoke directly. It's impossible that Laura did it. He paused, then added firmly, Laura has no reason to harm me. Ha! I sneered softly, then hung up the phone. I immediately retrieved the security footage from the guardhouse system and sent it to David's phone. You already suspect the truth? Why deceive yourself? The footage clearly showed Laura visiting the house the last time while I was out taking Sam to dinner. About half an hour later, the footage showed Laura holding something concealed in her arms, glancing around nervously before quickly leaving the villa property. I demanded that David call the police, but he firmly disagreed. Calling the police right now would cause a huge negative scandal for the Evans family and the company. We can't risk that. I snorted coldly but didn't reply. Hiding behind the excuse of protecting the company's reputation, he was clearly still trying to shield Laura. David, you really don't appreciate the efforts your parents made for you. This incident, however, did seem to plant a seed of doubt in David's mind regarding Laura. While taking Sam to the park one afternoon, we unexpectedly ran into Laura and her daughter Chloe. Laura's appearance had clearly declined. She looked stressed and less put together. Chloe looked at Sam with undisguised anger in her eyes. Her small face held an unpleasant expression that seemed too harsh for her age. Chloe pointed at Sam and yelled, "It's all your fault. Because of you, Uncle David won't accept my mommy. Your mommy doesn't even want you anymore. You're just a worthless bastard nobody wants." My eyes narrowed coldly. I stepped forward and slapped Chloe hard across the face. "Laura, if you can't teach your daughter basic manners, I'll do it for you." I rubbed my slightly sore wrist and looked at her coolly. After the slap, Chloe's anger flared even more. "I'm going to hurt you. It's because of you, evil woman, that my mommy is suffering like this." "Laura, if you can't control her, I will," I said indifferently. In my world, the idea of don't bully the weak doesn't apply when someone is attacking my child. So don't try to use moral arguments to make me feel guilty. Seeing the fierce look in my eyes, Laura froze for a moment, then quickly pulled Chloe back, who was still trying to charge at me. "Miss Lee, I think there's been some misunderstanding between us," Laura said quickly. "I never intended to break up your family. I also hope David does well. David is just helping me out of loyalty from our school days." I waved my hand dismissively. "Stop using that tired excuse. I know exactly what kind of person you are." Seeing this mother-daughter pair was putting me in a very bad mood. I took Sam's hand and turned to leave. Just as I turned, I felt a sudden shove from behind. I reacted instantly, spinning around and kicking the person, Chloe, straight into the nearby artificial lake. After all, I had trained in Taekwondo for several years. Handling this situation wasn't difficult. Chloe flailed in the water, crying out, "Mommy, save me!" Laura glared at me with pure hatred. "Alice, I didn't expect you to be so vicious, to treat a child like this." I shrugged. "If you don't get in there and save your precious daughter soon, she might actually drown." Laura couldn't swim and started screaming in panic. But the people standing around in the park weren't willing to risk their own safety for a child they didn't know. They just stood by watching, hesitant to intervene. Just as Chloe seemed about to go under, a figure suddenly dashed towards the lake. "Daddy! It's Daddy!" Sam's eyes lit up. David swam quickly towards Chloe. People on the shore threw out a life preserver rope, and David grabbed it, pulling both himself and Chloe to safety. David lay on the bank, breathing heavily. When Sam saw this, he immediately took off his own small jacket and tried to drape it over David's shoulders. "Daddy, are you all right?" Sam wiped water from David's forehead, asking with concern. "Chloe, my Chloe! If something happens to you, Mommy can't live anymore," Laura wailed as she hugged Chloe tightly. Chloe looked at me with fear in her eyes. "Miss Lee, I know I was wrong. I'll never show up in front of you again. Please, let me and my mommy go. I promise. I'll stay away from Uncle David from now on. Please give us a chance." I raised an eyebrow internally. This child certainly knew how to put on a performance. Laura, meanwhile, put on a pained expression. "Miss Lee, if you're angry, direct it at me. The child is innocent. Why did you push my child into the water? You're a mother too. How could you be so cruel?" The surrounding people now looked at me with more judgment in their eyes. Sam grew anxious and shouted, "It's not like that. It wasn't like that. Chloe pushed me from behind first. Mommy only fought back to protect me." David abruptly slapped Sam hard across the face. "Sam, what have I taught you? Who taught you to lie?" My expression turned instantly icy. Sam, holding his stinging cheek, cried out, "I'm not lying. What I said is true. Chloe called me a bastard nobody wants, and then she tried to push me into the water. Mommy only fought back because she was protecting me." David shouted angrily, "Sam, how dare you continue to lie?" He threw Sam's little jacket onto the ground and pointed angrily at him. At this moment, Chloe spoke up softly. "Mr. Evans, please don't blame Sam. He was just trying to protect his mommy. It's all Chloe's fault. She's the one who annoyed Miss Lee. It's all my fault." David was about to comfort Chloe when security guards rushed over. I narrowed my eyes and immediately ordered the area cleared. This amusement park was owned by my family, so clearing the area happened extremely quickly. I instructed the guards to take Sam away to change into dry clothes. Only then did I turn my cold gaze towards the man standing before me. "Hold him down," I ordered directly, and teach him a lesson. The bodyguards hesitated. Miss, this is your husband. What? I interrupted sharply. You can't follow my orders anymore? If you want to keep your jobs, do as I say. Otherwise, all of you can leave. Thinking of the bright red slap mark on my son's face, I felt furious. Alice, how dare you? David's words were cut short as the bodyguards immediately pushed him to the ground and began hitting him. They were careful, avoiding his face and vital areas, but their fists landed repeatedly on his body. Miranda and Chloe watched from the side, trembling in fear. You're committing assault, Miranda whispered nervously. I looked at her with mild interest. If you want to take the beating for him, you're welcome to step in. Miranda, clearly frightened, didn't dare say another word. After a thorough beating, David lay on the ground, gasping for air. I looked down at him and spoke softly. You should be thankful that you are Sam's father. Otherwise, after you slapped him like that, I would have ordered the bodyguards to break both of your hands. My family has connections you might not be aware of. Dealing with troublesome individuals isn't difficult for us. My words seemed to cast a chill over the three of them. Oh, and considering your recent performance, I've already spoken with Mrs. Evans. The Evans Group can have a new successor. All your company credit cards will be suspended, and the assets currently under your name will be frozen. I spoke slowly and deliberately. Mrs. Evans, out of consideration for her son's past relationship with you, has left you one villa. For everything else, you'll have to fend for yourself. I stood up and waved my hand dismissively. Good luck. David didn't seem to believe me and immediately called Mrs. Evans. When Mrs. Evans learned that her beloved grandson had been slapped, she was already furious and readily agreed to my proposal without hesitation. The new designated successor of the Evans family was David's older brother, Michael. When I arrived at the Evans Group headquarters, Michael was leaning back lazily in his office chair, seemingly lost in thought. Didn't we agree not to meet again? Michael pushed his glasses up slightly and spoke calmly. Did my useless younger brother anger you again? Michael was always like this, direct, hitting the core of the issue immediately. Even after interacting with him periodically over 2 years, I still found his way of thinking difficult to fully grasp. The Evans brothers were quite different. Michael, the older brother, was meticulous and known for being a shrewd businessman. David, the younger one, seemed driven more by emotion, sometimes lacking courage, and often hesitant. When I first married into the Evans family, my parents had asked for my preference between the brothers. After considering the situation, I chose David. My condition for the marriage was that if I married David, he had to be named the successor of the Evans family. I stated clearly, Alice Lee's husband will never be subordinate to anyone. The Evans family agreed readily. They likely needed someone by David's side to counterbalance Michael's influence. Before that, I had been involved in discussions with Michael for about 2 years. He seemed interested in my appearance and social skills, wanting me, essentially, as a presentable companion to help manage social obligations and attend business events. I, in turn, was interested in his network and influence. Michael was generous in that regard, readily introducing me to his contacts. We both understood the arrangement. There was no real love involved, just a mutually beneficial understanding. When I proposed ending our association, Michael hadn't even looked up from his work, simply responding with a cold, "Fine." After reaching an understanding with Michael about the current situation, I didn't want to stay any longer and turned to leave immediately. Michael smiled slightly as he watched me walk away. 2 months passed quickly. The private investigator I had hired continued sending me updates. David, having lost his position as successor, became increasingly indecisive and unsure in his actions. Initially, things weren't too bad, but over time, Laura and her daughter grew increasingly dissatisfied with him. Life is made up of small daily interactions, and as conflicts accumulated, Laura eventually reached her breaking point. If it weren't for that woman Alice, I'd still be living happily with my daughter, having a good life. How did I end up like this? Laura screamed. I've had enough. I've really had enough. David, you're useless. You can't even control one woman. I was blind to ever have chosen you. After days of enduring her emotional outbursts, David finally snapped. You need to be fair. If it weren't for you, would I have gotten involved with those thugs back then? Would I have spent a year in the hospital? Would I have ended up in this situation? And your daughter, acting so manipulative at such a young age. Alice already sent me the surveillance footage from the park that day. It was your daughter who cursed Sam and tried to push him into the water. Alice only reacted to protect her son. You two women, not a single decent one between you. Chloe's face turned red with anger, veins standing out on her neck. Don't you dare insult my mother. She rushed at David to hit him, but David shoved her forcefully, making her fall to the ground. Seeing her daughter mistreated, Laura became enraged. She grabbed a pair of scissors from a nearby table and stabbed them directly into David's chest. David's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared down at the scissors embedded in his body. Blood poured from the wound, dripping onto the floor. When David collapsed, Laura began to shake uncontrollably with fear. Trembling, she picked up her phone. Hello, Robert. I've killed David. You promised that if I killed him, you'd take me and Chloe back. Something the person on the other end said made Laura's face turn deathly pale. Robert, you lied to me? I won't let you get away with this. The person on the other end ignored her threats, let out a mocking laugh, and hung up. When I received the news, David had already been taken to the hospital for emergency surgery. Laura and her daughter had been arrested by the police. David was seriously injured, while Laura would likely face charges for intentional injury, potentially serving 3 to 5 years. But Laura, seemingly determined to worsen her own situation, apparently gave her daughter something toxic to induce sickness, likely as a ploy to get transferred to a hospital and escape custody during the transport. She managed to escape. When Laura regained consciousness, she found me sitting calmly in front of her. We were in an abandoned underground room, soundproofed on all sides. No matter how loud she might scream, no one outside would hear. Alice, what do you want? Laura struggled against the ropes binding her, but the more she moved, the tighter they seemed to become. I've come to see you off on your final journey, I said, watching her fearful expression with a calm smile. You want to kill me? Laura stared at me, her eyes wide with terror, looking at me as if I were some kind of monster. No, I shook my head. It's not me killing you. The story will be that you, fearing legal consequences, decided to end your own life. And you already have a life on your conscience. I added softly, but you really are quite ruthless, poisoning your own daughter just to create a diversion to escape. I almost admire the calculation. Your daughter probably didn't even realize you were the one causing her harm. You're talking nonsense. Don't say bad things about Chloe. I just gave her some strong laxatives. It wouldn't harm her life. Laura screamed furiously. Is that so? Your daughter's body is currently in the hospital morgue. The official cause of death is poisoning from the drink you gave her. No, it's impossible. You're lying. I won't believe you. Laura's expression became wild. I took out my phone and showed her the news reports, shattering her last hope. The screen clearly detailed how Laura had apparently poisoned her daughter and used the ensuing chaos to escape custody. No, it's not possible. How could this be? I only gave her a laxative. Why did it turn into poison? In a fit of rage and despair, she managed to break free from the ropes. Chloe, my Chloe! Mommy never meant to harm you. Why did it become deadly poison? How did it end up like this? Laura screamed in anguish, and then something seemed to click in her mind. Her bloodshot eyes fixed on me. It was you, wasn't it? You switched the medicine, didn't you? I snorted coldly. Why do you think Robert divorced you so quickly? Do you really have no idea? You foolishly believed Robert would help you afterward? That was always just a fantasy. Oh, and one more thing. The confidential documents you stole from the safe? I deliberately let you find them, knowing they were fakes I had planted. Laura didn't survive long after that realization. Her end was reportedly brutal, her body found in a state that suggested extreme violence. When she was discovered, there wasn't an undamaged part on her. Robert found me sometime later, smiling coolly. Miss Lee, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. He extended his hand. I took a step back, avoiding his touch. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't want any further entanglement with him and turned to leave. Miss Lee, don't be in such a hurry. Robert stopped me, quickly taking out a tiny recording device. His fingers worked rapidly on his phone, and our entire conversation from the underground room played back clearly. I stared at him in disbelief. Like a predator waiting patiently, he had apparently anticipated a moment of carelessness from me. In the end, I realized I had let my guard down. "What do you want?" I asked in a low voice. "Don't think you can threaten me with this. Laura's death is your doing, and Chloe died because of the substance you likely provided or influenced Laura to use. Don't try to pin this on me." "But who can prove that?" Robert laughed, his words chilling. "The people who supposedly rescued Laura before her escape could be linked back to you, Alice. The last person known to have potentially interacted with her was also you. Who would believe you weren't involved in her final demise? I've already had all call records between myself and Laura destroyed. Do you really think that if I release this recording, you and your family won't become the primary suspects?" I walked down the street toward the Evans Group building, feeling an icy chill spread through me. I thought I had finally secured my freedom and safety, but it seemed I had just stepped into another dangerous situation. "All I want is simple," Robert continued. "Just hand over the real Evans Group confidential documents to me, and I will ensure this recording disappears forever." He sneered. "I'm not as foolish as Laura. I knew the document you leaked to her was fake. Only an idiot like her thought it was genuine and celebrated." "The real document is with Michael now. I can't get it," I replied. "Don't underestimate yourself, Miss Lee. I have faith in your abilities. If the document isn't delivered in 3 days, that recording will be my special gift to you," Robert said with a malicious smile before turning and walking away. I dialed Michael's number. "Michael, I need to talk to you. Let's meet at the cafe across from your office. I'll wait for you there." After hanging up, I stared at the tall office building, lost in thought. I couldn't be sure if he would actually come down, so my only option was to wait. When I finally saw him exit the building, I felt a heavy weight lift slightly from my chest. Using the private elevator to go up to his office, I quickly locked the door behind me. I had been in this office many times before and knew the layout well, including the likely location of the safe where crucial documents were kept. If nothing had changed, the confidential files should be inside. The safe's code, assuming Michael hadn't changed it, used to be David's birthday. I typed in the familiar password, but the indicator flashed red incorrect. For a moment, I stood frozen, stunned. He had changed the password. I only had 2 more attempts. What could it be now? What would Michael choose? Trying to calm myself, I entered Michael's own birthday. Incorrect again. Only 1 attempt remained. Failure now would permanently lock the safe and trigger an alarm. I thought hard for a long moment, then carefully typed in my own birthday. Ding. The safe clicked open. The password was correct. My mind raced. Why would Michael change the password to my birthday? But there was no time to ponder that. I carefully opened the heavy safe door. To my utter shock, it was completely empty. I stood there for a long time, unable to process what I was seeing. Why was it empty? Where were the documents? "Are you looking for this?" Michael's calm voice came from behind me. I jumped, startled, and spun around in disbelief. Michael was leaning casually against the wall, holding the very file I had been desperately searching for. When did you get back here?" I asked, my lips feeling dry. "I never left," Michael stated simply. "The person who went downstairs was a body double." With that single sentence, he essentially confirmed my fate was in his hands. He had watched my frantic, foolish search, allowing me to think I was close to success, only to reveal his control at the last moment. Under Michael's intense, observant gaze, I explained the situation with Robert and the blackmail. Michael listened thoughtfully without interrupting. After a long pause, he sneered softly. "You're still as naive as ever, Alice. This document represents the core of the Evans Group. Once Robert got his hands on it, he would never spare anyone involved, including me." I knew that much was true. "If I don't comply with his demand," I said hoarsely, tears welling up despite my efforts to stay composed, "the first person he might target to pressure me could be Sam. I'm not afraid of dying myself, but Sam is innocent. He doesn't deserve to suffer for any of this." I grabbed Michael's hand, my voice trembling. "Tell me, what should I do? What can I possibly do?" Michael's face remained unreadable. He gently wiped away a tear from my cheek with his finger. Don't worry. Robert won't be causing any more trouble. He's insignificant. As I left the company building, the sadness and fear I had displayed moments earlier instantly transformed into cold, hard resolve. I discreetly rubbed my thigh where I had pinched myself hard to produce those tears, letting out a silent, bitter laugh. I never thought I'd have to resort to playing the damsel in distress in front of Michael. The situation felt dangerous from all sides, every step like walking on thin ice. If it weren't absolutely necessary, I would never have willingly entangled myself with Michael again. Having known him for years, I was well aware of how formidable and potentially ruthless he could be. But I also knew that if Michael decided to act, Robert wouldn't stand a chance. When I arrived at the hospital, Sam was sitting quietly next to David's bed, watching over him. I sent Sam out with a promise of a treat, then turned my attention to David. His face was pale against the white pillows. My feelings were complicated. Just as I was about to leave, David slowly regained consciousness. He looked at me, opened his mouth, but no sound came out at first. The doctor says you're going to be fine. After some rest, you should be able to leave the hospital, I said neutrally, preparing to turn away. David grabbed my hand weakly. The oxygen mask on his face slipped as he struggled to speak. Alice, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you and Sam. I frowned slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Let go of me. Alice, I had a dream, David whispered, his eyes bloodshot. I dreamed that you and Sam had both died. He continued, his voice choked with emotion. After you were killed by Laura, she manipulated everything right in front of me. She and her daughter teamed up to make Sam miserable. Later, Sam developed severe depression and jumped from a building on a rainy night. Laura and Robert worked together to drain the Evans family's wealth. I took Sam's ashes and staged a car accident on Laura's usual route. I guess that was my way of avenging you and Sam. This dream felt incredibly real, he explained. Every time he recalled the scenes, his heart ached, making it hard to breathe. I stared blankly ahead, lost for a moment in distant, painful memories that felt unnervingly familiar. Alice, those things really happened, didn't they? David asked softly, searching my face. He didn't wait for an answer, but continued, his voice filled with dawning realization. So, you set everything up, one step after another, to lead Laura into a trap. Once Laura was gone, Sam would finally be safe. When I left the hospital room, my legs suddenly felt weak, and I nearly stumbled. Before I reached the door, David asked, Alice, can we go back to how things were before? For Sam's sake. I shook my head slowly. It's too late now. We can't go back. You don't love me, and I don't love you. I added, you want to reconcile now only because it seems convenient or right for you at this moment? Nothing more. As I was about to leave the room for good, David asked one last question. Why didn't you take revenge on me too? With your intelligence, it would have been easy for you to ruin me completely, right? I left him with only one sentence. You are Sam's father, my child's father. If something truly terrible happened to you, Sam would be heartbroken. The next day, news broke that Robert was dead. He had apparently gotten into a heated argument with a cousin at his company, and the cousin had stabbed him in the neck with a pen. By the time paramedics arrived, Robert was already dead. The cousin promptly presented documentation of pre-existing mental health issues, making prosecution difficult. Meanwhile, Robert's company assets were quickly divided among the remaining shareholders, with Michael acquiring the largest portion. When I saw the news report, I felt a cold shiver despite myself, but also an undeniable sense of relief. I knew this was Michael's work. With all the immediate threats seemingly neutralized, I held my son close, feeling a complex joy mixed with the memory of loss. It felt good to finally be safe. This time, Sam, I whispered, Mommy will finally be able to protect you properly. Looking back on the events that mirrored David's dream, events from a past life perhaps, I could only feel the echoes of overwhelming pain. I had hated Laura for her manipulations and David for his passivity. Watching my son suffer and ultimately die in that other timeline had filled me with a rage that fueled my actions upon returning. When I had opened my eyes to find myself back before the tragedy unfolded, everything was still normal, offering a chance to change the outcome. This time, I had vowed to ensure Laura and her daughter could never cause such harm again. Mom, what are you talking about? Sam looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. I don't understand. It's nothing, sweetheart, I said softly, hugging him tighter. Mommy just had a bad dream. But now that I see you're here and safe, I'm not afraid anymore. When I went back to the main Evans residence with Sam, Michael was sitting on the sofa in the living room, a faint smile on his face as he watched me enter. A chill ran down my spine despite the warmth of the room. Michael silently mouthed the words, barely audible but clear in their intent. My prey, welcome back.